I'm Steve Lawson from Creative Studios. Now, a few years ago, our distributor came to me and said, "Can you make a Musketeers film?" And being very keen and slightly naive, I said, "Of course we can." But when I started thinking about it, I realised it was going to cost quite a bit more than the sort of films we were used to making. Problem was, the budget on offer was the same. So how do you squeeze a Musketeer film into a tiny budget? When you're making a film, the most expensive thing is the number of days shooting, in the sense that you know each day is going to cost X £1,000, regardless of what's happening. There's a certain amount you're just going to have to pay for your crew, your actors, your catering and what have you. So if you can reduce the number of shooting days down, regardless of how you do it, you're pretty sure you're going to save money. Now, why was this film going to be so expensive? Well, of course, The Musketeers, you're talking about a film that takes place in 17th century France, which is a long way from where we are. And that means locations, costumes and props. Now, we had a lot of costumes here from the sort of 19th century period. We had nothing from 17th century France period. And if you've ever seen a Musketeer film, there's a lot of hats, a lot of belts, buckles, boots, swords, all that stuff. And that's what came as a bit of a shock once I started buying the costumes. I was very lucky. I found actually a set of really, really good quality Musketeer costumes from a costume company that was closing down. So it was a few £100, but they were really top quality stuff. So we got these costumes in, and I realised, they were tunics and sort of shorts, but there was no belts, there was no hat, there was no boots, there was no sword. So, and all those things basically doubled the cost of the costume for each Musketeer. And you got 3 Musketeers plus D'Artagnan, the other hero. And I realised if you've got 4 heroes, you've got to have at least 4 bad guys if they're going to have a sword fight. So that's 4 bad guy costumes with boots, with swords, with belts, with hats. Not to mention all the other sort of characters that are required in a Musketeer film. So it really started to add up very quickly. Plus, of course, you can't shoot the whole thing in our small studio. You need grand locations for a Musketeers film, right? So that's another big cost. So adding it all up, I figured the only way we can do this was if we reduced down our number of shooting days. We'd normally shoot for about 10, 11, 12 days for a low budget movie. With the Musketeers film, we shot it in 7 days. And I'm going to show you now some of the little tricks that we employed to get through the shoot as quickly as we did. So the first trick that I employed in order to get this film done was, when writing the script, to employ a sort of flashback structure, which is we have 2 characters talking to each other, and it's the old D'Artagnan speaking to a younger challenger who's coming to fight him, talking about how he became a musketeer. So we have these 2 characters in one set, basically setting up the plot and the events of the past. And what you end up doing is the old D'Artagnan kind of explains the situation, what he was doing, what happened. Then we flash back and we show the situation and what he was doing and what happened. And then we come back to the sort of present day, and then they talk about what just happened. And a lot of reviewers have commented that this is kind of redundant, which it is. But the fact is, it sort of doubles the running time. It's a way of getting a feature film done in 7 days. So don't blame me. This was the situation we were in. Now another trick that we employed is to use the same staging for multiple scenes. There were 3 scenes in the film where the mysterious character Milady visits D'Artagnan in his lodgings. And the scenes are that Milady knocks on the door, comes in, D'Artagnan stands up, they stand face to face talking to each other, and Milady goes out. Or D'Artagnan goes out. But essentially, each scene is identical blocking. If you watch it, you'll see what I mean. D'Artagnan stands up, Milady comes in, and they stand in the same positions facing each other until one of them goes out. And the reason we did that was so that instead of shooting each scene in its entirety on multiple different camera setups, what we did was we chose a camera setup and we shot all 3 scenes. Then we changed camera setup, shot all 3 scenes, because we knew that these camera setups would work for every scene because they all had the same blocking. And so we were able to shoot all 3 scenes in a space of a couple of hours in one morning. And because the scenes are spaced out throughout the film, you don't really notice that they all look the same, and they all have the same essential mechanism to them. And so that's one of the things I'm quite proud of in that film. Those scenes are all quite nice. We shot them incredibly quickly. The one thing you really need in a Musketeer film is to end with a big sword fight scene, right? And we planned pretty much an entire day to shoot our sword fight. There was just a little bit of dialogue to cover in the morning, and then we'd shoot 2/3 of the day we'd have to do our sword fight. We got to the location and the sun was much too harsh and it was going in and out from clouds all the time, so the lighting kept changing. So our DOP, John, rigged up a huge screen to kind of diminish the sunlight, which took ages. Then we started shooting our dialogue, and there was a guy just down the end of the location, which we had no control of, decided it was a good day to tune up his car. So there was this guy revving this car engine every 5 minutes on and off, while we're trying to shoot a dialogue scene just a few meters further away. So it basically took half the day, in fact just over half the day. So then we came to shoot our big sword fight, and we've got an hour at best. So what do? Well, if you look closely at the sword fight, what we did was we split our actors into our good guys and our bad guys, and our choreographer gave each pairing a little routine, just basically a couple of swipes and a punch or something like that, which lasted about probably not even 10 seconds, maybe 5-10 seconds. And what we did was we shot that little routine from one side, from the other side, then we shot it again in slow motion from one side to the other side. And we did that for each of our pairings, so we ended up with maybe 30 seconds worth of fighting. But the slow motion was brilliant because not only does it give you more running time, it also makes the fighting look more dramatic. Even if you're doing just some simple moves, when it's done in slow motion, it has a more dramatic weight. It looks more exciting. So that same little bit of choreography, by cutting between these two guys, then cut to these two guys, then cut to these two guys, that little bit of choreography was able to kind of last for a reasonable amount of time. Our main bad guy in the film, playing Rochefort, was Sean Cronin. You might recognise Sean Cronin from a bunch of big A-list films. So he's a busy man. So on this shoot we only had him for half a day. So again we had to employ a lot of tricks to make sure we got all his scenes done in that half day. And if you look at the film, well, you'll notice the usual trick was Rochefort is sitting at a table. At the same side of the table, he sits in this one table for almost all his scenes. And again, because the scenes are dotted throughout the film, it doesn't become too noticeable. So by having the character always sitting at the same table in the same place, looking the same direction, saves us huge amounts of time on lighting setups and camera setups. And that's how we got all of Sean's scenes done in half a day. So with a combination of careful script writing, careful scene blocking and camera setups, and very, very simple fight choreography, we were able to shoot this epic story in just 7 days.